That man's an imposter. That man is the imposter. That man's an imposter. That man is the imposter. That man's an imposter. That man is the imposter. That man's an imposter. That man is the imposter.
So I was wrong. I'll admit it. I was wrong about this race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But I wasn't wrong in the way many people thought I would be wrong. You see, because this race was almost a mirror identical race to the one that was run at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And last week I thought there would be some difference, seeing as the Atlanta surface is very worn out, and I thought the surface of the track would cause some difference in the, I guess you could say, close competition that we saw. We didn't really see a whole lot of difference. Sure, the battle at the end was probably a little bit better than Atlanta, and quite honestly, it was probably a little bit better of a race overall than Atlanta. But many of the beats in the race and many of the things that we saw at Atlanta were the things that we saw at Las Vegas. So the question I guess I would have, and I don't want to make this video just a total dunk session, dunking on people, because that's not really what I want to get across here, but I do want to come out and say, I told you so about the Aeroducts. Everybody was saying that, oh, David, it's not the full package. The Atlanta is not representative of what this new NASCAR package is exactly like. It's going to be totally different at Las Vegas. The Aeroducts will save everything. And, I mean, you probably couldn't have tried to get a closer race to the one that we saw at Atlanta. So we did see the package at Atlanta, and we saw it here. Now, if you liked Atlanta, if you like Las Vegas, you are going to love this season of NASCAR, because it looks like they are damn near going to race the same at every single racetrack. If you liked these two races, you're going to get it virtually everywhere that they're running this package. If you didn't like it, boy howdy, are you in trouble, because the whole season is more or less going to be like this, I would imagine, outside of truly wacky weather conditions that may mess with the aerodynamics, or just something really crazy or random happening. This is about what we're going to see. We saw, and what did we see? What did we see? What have we seen in these two races? We have seen races, well, I guess I'll say this. One more dunk, and then we'll get serious. We saw, or at least we have seen, a package which has, I guess, justified the stage caution, because without them, you wouldn't get those exciting restarts that everybody on Twitter seems to love, and then 10 laps later, it's business as usual. Business as usual as well is kind of the thing that I'm thinking about here, because somebody sent me a picture of lap 33 at Atlanta, or excuse me, now I'm getting confused, at Vegas last year and lap 33 at Vegas this year, and the gaps were larger at Vegas on lap 33 last year. Now, I don't know if there was a caution early on in the race. There very well could have been, which contributed to that discrepancy. That being said, I mean, it's last year's package, but slower. In a lot of ways, that's what it feels like. Now, you did have some excitement there with the three-way battle for the lead, or I guess it was really a two-way battle for the lead, because Harvick never really got up into it, and neither did Kyle Busch. The battle between the Penske cars is pretty good. It actually reminded me quite a bit of the battle between Harvick and Larson in Atlanta, except for this battle ended up happening towards the end of the race. I think, again, a lot of that was brought on because of lap traffic. I guess we'll just start talking about dirty air, because there's a lot of buzzwords that are going around, and I will give Fox a little bit of credit. They've turned their carnival barker-ness down a little bit. Now they're only just saying how fantastic and amazing the restarts are, but they were willing to talk about how cars would tend to get stalled out when there would be two cars side by side, and the third car wouldn't be able to get much of a run or to get going. They would get up behind them and then wouldn't be able to do anything with them. Dirty air really factored in again to this race. Dirty air, momentum, a lot of the things I was talking about last week. I don't want this thing to be a complete rehash of last week. But lap cars definitely played into the Keselowski Logano battle, and they certainly kept the race a lot closer than they otherwise would have, because, again, if you have any off-throttle time with this package, you're going straight to the back. There was a couple times where Stenhouse would be really close to someone else. He would have to lift because he's Stenhouse and he almost wrecked, and he'd fly right to the back. 2 or 3 guys would pass him. And this is the thing that really, I think there was a moment in this race that really exposed this package for what it is. And I think you're going to see more of this. And I'm surprised you haven't seen more of this, because I assume the people on the top of the pit boxes are pretty smart guys. Maybe they just haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to do this. If we get a yellow with 10 to go in one of these 1.5 miler races, we'll probably end up seeing this. Kurt Busch was leading the race with old tires, and everybody behind him were the best cars in the race. They've been the best drivers in NASCAR for the last 2 or 3, 4 years. And not saying anything against Kurt Busch, because he is a very skilled driver. But in any other year of NASCAR racing, Kurt Busch would have, within 2 laps, been 10th spot and falling quickly. New tires, I guess, no longer matter, because it's all about the track position. It's all about, and I said this back in testing when I watched that testing footage, is that the top 5 in the field seem to just be able to pretty much do whatever they want, and you're not really going to be able to touch them from further on back. In fact, Kurt Busch, I think, ended up finishing exactly 5th in the race due to the fact that there was no caution after the stage and at stage 2, which was a little bit different than Atlanta, where you had kind of what I talked about just a few seconds ago, where you had some guys play some pit strategy, get out in front, and then they weren't able to be caught. Kurt Busch led the race on old tires for, I think it was either 20, 25, or 30 laps. I mean, it was a very long distance. So on the short run, tires completely don't matter anymore. So if I'm a race strategist and the caution flies with 20 to go, I don't care who comes into the pits. I don't care if there are 39 cars that come into the pits. I'm not coming into the pits, because almost certainly, if my driver's halfway decent, he's probably going to be able to lead the race and eventually win it, as long as he's a good blocker and is good on restarts. I think those are the keys, because even though you got the 3 and 4 wide action, you don't have a lot of it at the front. It seems very, very difficult to actually pass the lead car. It's not like it's impossible, and we did see some really good moves. I know Harvick laid one on at one point, and obviously the Keselowski Logano battle was really good. Kyle Busch was another guy who was able to pass cars. We did have a pretty good duel at the front. There's no doubt about it. But I think, again, a lot of it had to do with the lap traffic rather than it necessarily being a totally organic situation. And this was the thing, the Wood Brothers Twitter, I don't know if they were trolling, but they came out and said, we're shocked that dirty air is playing such a factor. And a lot of the guys, including guys who are open wheel guys who race winged open wheel cars like Christopher Bell, were coming out and saying, I wasn't expecting the racing to be like this. I said this in Atlanta. I've said this as far back as I can remember. The more aerodynamics you add to the car to increase downforce, especially on the top side. For NASCAR, it's, the splitter on the front and the gigantic wing on the back, or the spoiler on the back. You're just going to increase the amount of dirty air. There's just going to be so much more dirty air that passing is going to become harder to do rather than easier to do. It's not like you get all this drag and this huge hole punched in the air without any kind of a penalty, at least with the way that they're doing it. And again, I'm not an aerodynamicist, but I understand enough of it to understand that the way NASCAR has done it is not going to result in the effect that I think a lot of people were expecting. And so that's kind of the last point I want to make here, because I don't want this video to go on too long. Expectations versus reality. Darrell Waltrip last week claimed very confidently, and then not so confidently as he kind of thought about it, he claimed this package is a success. Is it? If you liked the racing last year, but thought the cars needed to be slowed down a little bit, and it needed to be a little bit harder to get through lap traffic, you've got the perfect package. But that's not the line that we've been told by Fox and NBC and NASCAR and some of the drivers who have set up expectations for, let's say, were you expecting a pack race at either Atlanta or Las Vegas? If your answer is yes, you didn't get it. If your expectation was a lot of lead changes, I don't know if you consider 17 a large number. I mean, some people may not. And again, your answer is going to depend. I would say that NASCAR fans generally expect more lead changes than that. And a lot of those probably happened on the pit sequence. So let's say probably 5 of those so let's say that was 12 legitimate lead changes. I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm going to guess it was somewhere around there. I would guess NASCAR fans would be more inclined to want more than 12 over the course of a 400 to 500 mile race. You're only changing the lead over that period of time once every 20, 25 laps. I think NASCAR fans would like to see that a little bit more. So if you wanted more lead changes, especially versus the package last year, you didn't get it. So there's another point off. If you were looking for smaller teams to play a factor, a real factor, a legitimate factor, are they? Some people were talking about JTG last week running up in the top 10. I would argue that they got up there more because of track position. But if you looked at the top 10 throughout this race, it was all the top dogs. It was all the guys you would expect to be in the top 10. So if you're looking for the underdog story, you don't have that. You did not get that. It was promised to you by somebody who is authorized by NASCAR to be giving those opinions and shaping the public perception. You did not get that. The one thing you have gotten is closer racing physically. And I'm still not convinced. I mean, watching this race this year versus watching that race last year, maybe it was slightly better, maybe it was slightly worse. But here's the deal. I didn't see a whole lot. I did not watch this race and I did not feel like I was watching a different product. And did NASCAR necessarily rely on providing a different product for everybody? That was certainly what was marketed. And that's certainly, I don't think, what we got. Again, the gaps on the track are closer, but is it closer racing than it was last year? I don't know. And certainly, again, you've had close finishes at both of these races. I don't want to discount that. But was there, and definitely Brad had a much bigger shot this race than Truex did trying to pass him last week. But was there really a chance that he actually could have gotten there and made that pass? It's hard to say. I don't know. I guess we'll leave a check mark at close finishes too. I guess we'll say if you wanted closer finishes, you got those too. So looking at kind of the scorecard, we're at 50%. And if you've gone to American public schools, 50% is a fail. Sure, you got half the true and false questions right, but you missed half the true and false questions too. And if you had maybe been a little more honest and told the truth a little bit more, you would have gotten 100%, even if it wasn't something, or at least as long as the test wasn't the most popular test in the world, you still would have aced it from a expectations standpoint. I don't know. Those are my thoughts on Las Vegas. And those of you who hate me talking about NASCAR on the regular, well, guess what? IndyCar starts next week. My focus is going to start shifting over towards, I don't want to say more sophisticated because that will upset people. Let's say a little more, let's poke fun at myself, a little more stuck-up forms of motorsport, because I will be I won't be in St. Petersburg next weekend, but I will be doing the Bandwagoner's Guide to IndyCar, working on that actually right now. In fact, once this gets uploaded, I will continue to work on it, aiming for a Monday premiere on that. So be ready. If I have to delay it a little bit, it'll be a Tuesday premiere. I'm gonna get it done. I will actually be in Sebring, Florida for the 1,000 miles of Sebring and the 12 hours of Sebring. That's the weekend after St. Pete, and I think there's an IndyCar race the week after that at Circuit of the Americas. So lots of excitement. Then the month of May, of course, and that's going to be crazy. So unless, a NASCAR driver gets in a fight with a fan or something crazy happens, someone else strikes NASCAR down, there's not going to be totally regular NASCAR content. There's just a few editorial things I'm going to talk about, so don't unsubscribe if you're all about the NASCAR. But it's definitely going to be a little bit more about everything else now that everything else is starting. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport and NASCAR content, and I will see you in the next video.